Hi guys, welcome. So today, Victor and I are going to be connecting a ton of dots, all the way from how you can live an adventurous, fulfilling, exciting life, defy the norm, and heal all your emotional scars at once. And I know it's like a big goal. This is something Victor and I talk about all the time, not only for ourselves and like how can we live in alignment as a married couple with a big family and be entrepreneurs, but also as coaches and helping others and then influencers on all these platforms. So this is a really exciting one. I know if you're watching on YouTube, it doesn't always align with like just adventure travel, but hey, if you got about 30 minutes to watch this on 2x speed, then maybe we'll open your eyes to something that you might have been missing.
Because it's all ultimately related. If you're watching this, and ultimately sometimes people are watching these videos like, oh, they live vicariously through our experiences, but at the same time, we'd like to empower you, inspire you, and give you the tools so that you can go get that yourself.
Absolutely, because if you're watching us and like, oh, I want to do that, or that looks so cool, but you're not doing it, this video will probably
help you
get one step further. And you know, the big thing is the preface with this whole podcast and YouTube video is that like we've been married for a really long time. Like we're really in love with each other. But if we didn't actively take these steps that we're going to be talking about today, we absolutely would have gone different ways. And it's because there's a willingness to keep trying, and there's a willingness or a desire to live an exciting life. Because I think a lot of people would just be like, it's too much work, or they don't value themselves enough to say like, I want to get to the root of this. Sure. And so because we do have that love for each other, we can nurture that along. We can, like, hey, I know it's hard right now, but let's do this work. So real quick, if you're on YouTube, you should definitely subscribe. Hey, if you're on our podcast, like write us a review. It would help us so much. I'd really appreciate it. Okay. So what started this was we were born, pretty much, because everybody is born into this dilemma. But what really started this, like dialogue. Saying, hey, Victor, can you please go on YouTube and the podcast with me and talk about this? This is so important for so many people. Is Victor 2 weeks ago went to San Diego to work for a while. You know, if you don't know, real quick, our story for the last few months at least is we had been full-time RVing, but a house came available to rent in Montana from my uncle, and it's an amazing piece of property. It really is. I mean, I don't love living in a house, but if I had to live in a house, this is definitely where I'd want to live, but it's cold. And so we're still road tripping like half the month, pretty much. Yeah. And so Victor decided since California's kind of open, he's decided, you know what? It's a good opportunity. I don't really love road trips like you do. Maybe soon he will though. Yeah. And let's go. I'm going to go back to San Diego and work a little bit.
Check on my clients. Yeah. Check on my clients. I've been working digitally since everything happened. I just jumped into an opportunity like, hey, how can we make this work? My family's picked up a house. Let's make it work so it's on a digital platform. And what that means is usually a FaceTime or a Zoom call while they're standing in a facility or in their home. But I wanted to continue to nurture them. And so I thought it was a great opportunity to go back and work with them. And I promptly fell into, gosh, what do I call it? A pit, not a pit of despair. It was all great interaction with my clients. However, I ended up throwing a ton of hours and stress into my life that I was somewhat extracted from. Is that how you describe that?
For sure. And like in this video, what's cool is we're going to link together a couple key things as far as like live life to the fullest, adventure, enjoyment of life, enneagram, and Myers-Briggs and chakra, because they are all linked. And so what he experienced in that 2 weeks was completely a function of enneagram. I'm type 2. I want to give to everybody else. Yeah. But with that sacral chakra blockage, that was like, I'm not, I need to be accepted. I'm not worthy, all these feelings. And so, but then deep down, the highest desire was like, I just wish I was with my family. They're having so much fun. This is not fair. Why did they go without me? The
resentment, actually, that's one of those things that as we started doing travel during the pandemic, I encountered a lot more. I would come in and out of San Diego, but the problem is that resentfulness, like that anger is an emotional need not met, right? An emotional need not met. And so all I had was the anger. I didn't necessarily internalize that.
He's saying that when he'd go to San Diego for 2 weeks and work, he'd hustle, he'd feel really successful, make good money, have great connection with clients, but then he'd get on a plane, get to me, and there'd be like this fallout for a couple days.
Right.
And it was like this anger built up because deep down he was like, oh,
I wish I could
do this, but then he's telling a story but I'm not allowed to. I'm not
to.
allowed to.
And that's just programming ultimately that we have to get to the root of. We're running all this programming on a subconscious level, and subconscious means under, right? Sub means under. So
how much is under?
How much? 95%, 90 to 95%, guys. So
we're laughing because I quiz him on these things because we start like doing
so
these.
Ultimately, look, this is what happens is that you're running all this programming and you don't really realize ultimately what's going on.
So start what happened when you came back from San Diego. So
I was a physical wreck. First off, I came down with a really bad cold, which I'm never ever sick, but it's sort of the repercussions of a lot of hours of work coupled with even the downtime not being a very relaxing state for me. I was like, okay, gotta go here. And one of the things that I do when I'm working is I work more, because if I sit in quiet stillness, all I do is miss my wife. All I do is miss my family, and I realize those emotional sort of vacuums, I call them, right? These emotional vacuums that are there. And so I prefer to just like, well, I'm just gonna take more. And so these long 10 to 12 hour, what felt like a 10 to 12 hour day left me feeling really, really drained. And then it's probably 2 days before I left that I realized that ultimately I was getting a sore throat and I was really sore, stiff. I wasn't healing. I dropped into my old jiu-jitsu gym, and I could tell the first 2 days that I went in there, the first week, I was like, my energy was high, smile ear to ear. And by the second week, potentially fourth workout, I was like, oh my gosh, I am so sore. I'm not recovering. I'm like, you kind of feel that challenge when you're on the mats and you don't have the energy you really want, and you don't have that feeling.
And on top of it, I don't want to go into too much in this story, but Victor 12 years ago had severe adrenal exhaustion. It was really hard. And like, you can go look at his Instagram to get a link to his video where he talks about how he recovered from it. We're going to be doing a whole lot more on that front, because I think so many people are struggling with this right now. But that's kind of what you felt like, I think, too. When you were in San Diego, you're like, I'm teetering on like triggering back to what I felt like there.
Yeah, I mean, it's real easy. And the other thing is busy. I think a lot of people fall into this. They want to go, well, I'm just busy. I don't have the time to work.
It's a busy badge.
It's a busy badge. And as Americans, I think sometimes that's just the badge.
Programming.
It's a badge.
You are more valuable as a human being if you're busy.
Yeah. Because
that means, and this is, I'll tie into chakras in this video too, but if you're busy, you're doing a lot of things. That's Manipura. That's your solar plexus. And it makes you like, yeah, I'm busy. I'm needed. And so then it's Sacral Chakra, where you're like, oh, I'm valued because I'm so busy. Somebody must need me. And then it's on top of it is Throat Chakra, because let's be honest, I can attest to this because I fell into this trap a long time ago. And then I kind of isolated myself in like, I just do, people I think will easily say, well, Robyn, she just does what she wants. And in that process, I learned like I had to start saying no. Like, so that's Throat Chakra, to be able to like draw that line and be like, no. Because what happens is people ask, if you're not busy, then you're going to be the one who's asked, well, can you do this for me? Well, you can do that. And while we should totally serve each other and help, I think it's very easy to become manipulated in that situation. And it's so hard for people just to be like, no, I'm not busy and I'm going to take care of myself. Right. And that is not approved of nearly as much as it can, or as much as it should be. So he came back, you came back.
I came back sick and then sore and injured like I haven't been in a long time.
And a big struggle for us is like, Victor jokes like, oh, I married Sporty Spice. I'm not that sporty. I'm not that athletic, but like, I do like to go do things and hike and bike and climb. And it becomes such a struggle in our relationship because it feels like he's always hurt. I'm like, oh, you can't go do this again. You can't. And there's not a lot of other things And then on top of it, it ends up being like, oh, well, we don't have anything we can go do athletically, so let's just go get a drink instead. And then a few days into it, you're like, well, this isn't healthy. And so we end up kind of backpedaling, right? To like, why are you hurt? That's what started this video, was basically you went from knee pain, sick, a couple days later knee pain, a couple days later now you have sciatica, all these things that he doesn't necessarily always struggle. The knee part does always struggle with, so we will talk
We'll
about.
talk a little bit about that.
Swahistana.
Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay, remember that word. Okay.
Say it again.
Swahistana. I have to say it like that. Sorry.
We go at the same time. Isabelle, I know you probably already know this, but Isabelle, Gabi, and I run another website and another YouTube, Making Mindfulness Fun. And Isabelle's been reading The Web That Has No Weaver. It's a very detailed, in-depth Chinese approach to Chinese medicine. And so, of course, when Victor comes back, she's like, yeah, Dad, you have kidney essence deficiency. And he's like, what? So luckily we had some kidney in our freezer.
Like cures like. Old school ancestral medicine. Organ meats in general are really, really powerful. Multivitamins. So I'm like, well, I don't know if I 100% believe it. Honestly, I did at that point. I have an idea of where that's going. You kind of feel so worn out. So I knew I needed, if I cooked that and then started doing a lot of practicing self-care, that things would start coming right. And the first thing was that cold went away relatively quick for me.
One of the many, many things that Victor's so amazing at is that he has felt this swing of feeling really good and feeling really bad. And Victor has a willingness to try anything when it comes to food, whether it's cutting any food,
I'll go eat dirt
eating any food, whatever that takes, he will try it.
Here, eat this, it'll make you feel better. Sure, no problem.
And when you did,
I think that comes from decades and decades of like sawdust protein shakes where it's all chunky.
How about before that? As a kid, you guys ate some.
Oh yeah, you were. This is what's there. So from the rooter to the tutor, you ate everything. I always used to ask my parents like, hey, why do we eat every part of the cow or every part of the pig? Because it'd be wasteful, and you come from a impoverished. I'm like, but I don't think we're that poor anymore. Why are we eating intestines of cow? Look, I love menudo as much as anyone else, but if you're eating pretty regularly, I don't know if that's all that great for you.
Okay, so Isabelle's reading that, telling me, your kidney essence chi. Now, Isabelle, Gabi, and I, years and years ago, Isabelle really started it, but then we jumped in real quick, became obsessed with learning personality types. First, we studied Myers-Briggs a lot, then we enneagram. Then, we were already, anytime we were in San Diego, we were doing yoga a lot. We started having a pretty disciplined meditation. Then we started unlocking the chakras. And so we've been kind of obsessed with that whole realm of whatever you want to call it, spirituality. I mean, we don't need to put a label on it. It's just understanding the self, understanding what makes us tick, why we think a certain way, why we act a certain way, why we feel a certain way. All of that comes together. And so we've always been like, Dad, Victor, you need to heal.
I feel like I'm always one or two steps behind them, but ultimately I'm very open. The way they're delivering it, and actually between the three of them, there's probably a perfect delivery service there.
And again, it's like really all of this is going to come down. It comes down so much to programming. So the idea is, programming and some personality type, but when we tell him this, we'll say, okay, well, you need to unblock your svadhisthana. And he's like, well, what does that mean? I don't get it. Like, give me some, like, is it something I can eat? And it's hard because it's an element of mindset, and it's not something you can just reach out your hand and someone puts in your hand and like, here you go. This is how you fix it. And I think a lot of people can agree that right now we are in a spot where people just like hand me something so I can fix this, even though it may or may not work. It's easier than going within. And so maybe we'll motivate you to go within. I know it's hard. I'm not pretending that it's easy,
mindfulness is not easy. It's sometimes the work gets dirty. You get dirty a little bit, but I see it all the time with the clients that I work with, and I provide them stepping stones for their mindfulness. I'm not here to necessarily judge them, but like, hey, if you want to get better and you're unhappy in your life, well, the workout is only a part of that. We've got to start asking the questions and like, all right, let's take the next step. What do you like? Next step. What's your perfect day? Next step. Let's evaluate that. And then once you do that, then you can realize like, okay, what's going on inside me because I'm not doing that. right? And then you can bring
You
awareness.
don't have to have all the answers, because Victor will say that he's like the most amazing coach. I could never be a coach like he in the way he does, because he's such a great nurturer. But the reason is, if I ask you those questions, you're like, I don't know. I don't know. And then we just keep moving through them. And so just because, even if you can't answer the question, doesn't mean you can't ask the question. And I was going to tell a little side note. So in this video, in this podcast, you are going to learn so much about Victor and I. So if you don't know, if you've never met Victor, seen Victor, he's the same height as me.
What?
And so, okay, I gave it to you. You're not a half inch shorter. He was grew up, in fact, you probably have heard this story before. He's like, I was a small kid. I was overfed by my parents. So not only was I kind of a small kid, I wasn't the leanest child. And so
I was told if I stretch a lot and eat all my food, I was going to grow.
You were going to grow
taller. Neil, if you eat all of your food and stretch at night before bed, you will grow very tall. Made me really flexible and really chubby.
And so he, because of that, there's this natural drive to be strong. Because if I can't feel dominating out these other things, so he's like, all right, I feel strong. When I first met Victor,
tools, right?
I had never weight trained. Within weeks, days, I don't know, we were in Gold's Gym at least 2 hours a day. And it was great. I mean, we fell in love that way, and it was wonderful. It was, but weight training was everything. That was our life. And so when naturally after, I don't remember, let's see, we were dating, I was 17 when we started dating. We opened our business when I was 20. So somewhere between 17 and 20, I was teaching gymnastics. Victor and I were inseparable. We were those annoying couples that were together every second of the day. And so
not much has changed.
And so we go to open a business, and he was a business major actually at the time, and I had taken him over nope, you're going to be kinesiology. This is all you love, is working out. You're obsessed with working out. I mean, I liked working out too, but it wasn't as much. So we opened a business, and we I was teaching gymnastics. So I'm I kind of wanted a raise where I was teaching. I was like, you're not paying me enough for what I do. So I said, hey, let's open a business together. We were only 20. He handed me his gold card. I maxed it out for $30,000. We bought gymnastics equipment and 10 spinning bikes. We had never taken a spinning class, but
we knew it was hot. Yeah.
And so the point of that was that we took something he was passionate about, strength training, and we took the next step, you should master the science of strength training. And it was great. He did. He went in, he's like, okay, Victor can fix any injury on you. He is so great at your shoulder hurts. You don't need surgery. Just go see Victor. He'll fix it. Then though, that was 30 years ago, almost 29 something. That was a long time ago. Over the course of a couple decades, things started changing in the clients that he worked with. At first, you could just work on strength, stronger. But then some people couldn't work on strength. They were just always hurt. Every time you'd make a step forward in your strength, and honestly, this is why the San Diego story comes in, is because Victor's kind of experiencing this right now. All he wants is to be able to go train hard in the gym, train hard in jiu-jitsu, but every time he goes to do that, he keeps getting hurt. And so simultaneously, people got to know Victor. We had a business in a very small community for a long time, and they knew just what a kind, non-judgmental, intelligent person he was, and they're like, I want to work with him. Well, what naturally happened is that his enneagram is type 2, and he's an empath. He feels everyone's emotions. So while your desire might be, oh, I am going to go teach you how to be really strong, when you come in to work out and you're going to lift really heavy, but you're like, oh, either my shoulder hurts, or I'm just really tired, my kid was sick all weekend. Well, guess what? He's going to prioritize and adjust and be like, oh, I feel you, nothing's more important to being the dad. And so long story short, over the last 30 years, he's kind of had to evolve away from what he was first passionate about, strength training, and what he has an abundance of knowledge about, into this element of feeling and mindset and mindfulness, and being like, why are these people always hurt? Why is life so hard for people? And maybe it's partially because I don't, because I am a little bit of an outsider, that I can, when I see him go through the ebb and flow of feeling amazing and then feeling really bad, I'm like, hey, this is what's happening. Like, I can see it from the outside. Maybe it's partially because of my personality type, but I can see this, like, wow, we really have to like make some changes and like help people understand why life is so hard for them. Because I want nothing more than tell you, like, go live life to the fullest. Go just like take the risk, jump in.
Yeah, they're just words though, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's the challenge. Go live life, enjoy every day, appreciate, gratitude. You know, these are all things we say, like posting on a social media, like live every day life to its fullest on your screen, albeit can be motivational, is not enough to actually do that, right?
Right. And like we experience this. I absolutely like want to say, Victor, come back with, or, you know, come on a road trip with me, come climb with me, come do this stuff. It's living life to the fullest. And there's some part of that's like, well, wait, I don't know. I don't know who I am. I don't know what that is. And I don't know who I am. Like, my whole identity is wrapped up into being the helper.
What I do, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk real quick about Svadhisthana. That's your sacral chakra. Now, we tell this all the time. Doesn't matter if you are Christian, Muslim, it doesn't matter your religion. The fact is, we are all still spiritual human beings that have energy centers in our body. Okay, so this chakras is not religious at all. Spirituality is different. Energetic systems is what we're talking about here. Okay, so you have 7 energetic systems or energy hubs from your tailbone to the crown of your head. And your second one up is called your sacral chakra. Well, your sacral chakra is really where, when it's blocked, you're going to feel unworthy, depressed, insecure, alone, need for approval, low libido, have trouble getting pregnant, or infertility. We see this a lot. All of these things. Well, can you imagine with the year
that we just had
before, this was the most blocked chakra in the US, before 2020. Can you imagine when you put people in isolation, what this must do to their sacral chakra? And so this is compounded with the fact that enneagram, we've got 9 enneagram types. If you are in the shame triad, at enneagram 2, 3, or 4, you naturally struggle with feelings of unworthiness to begin with. So, and everyone does different, but as far as if they're expressing it, they're internalizing it, they're falling asleep to it. Watch Making Mindfulness Fun videos if you want to get all caught up to it. But laying the foundation that if you struggle with feeling not worthy, needing approval, needing acceptance, not acting from your highest self, your true self, you're like, you just feel internally at conflict, or you've had infertility issues, which is so big right now. And if like you just don't have this zest for life, there's a good chance something's going on with your sacral chakra. And so can you imagine if that's blocked, how the heck are you going to listen to me and say, like, go live life to the fullest, live unapologetically, defy the norm, you've got this. Yeah. You're going to be like...
But, you know, in these energy hubs, to interject a little bit, above and below, upstream, downstream can affect these flows. So for me, as a little side note, like if my root chakra, which is my base, like I am safe. I always think of that. I am safe. I'm safe. Well, it comes down to, like, when I was a kid, I didn't feel all that safe. So my root chakra probably was affected and blocked. And because of that development of my sacral chakra, it was impacted significantly. And even now I have to battle that and go, because if I make my root happy, then I can step into these creative energies. Just dabbling, sticking my toe in, because sometimes I used to think that my creative energy flow was in program creation, and even my job fulfilled a little bit of that, because I could spontaneously switch gears on a kids class and engage them to the point where they were sort of mesmerized by whatever I was doing, and I had that creative energy and I could feel this charge from it. The problem with all of that, and even going back and helping, is that as an empath, there's a feeling of giving, but also of draining.
Yeah.
Of draining that essence, and so that building that harmony and to build it up is certainly part of. I
promise at the end we're going to give you tangible ways to do this too. Okay. So programming is something we keep spinning that word out, right? Well, programming is the messaging you were told as a kid from your parents, the messaging you got from your peers, the messaging the media is giving you, including social media. If you listen to the first episode of Defy the Norm podcast, I talk about it. Like, I was not this person. When Victor met me, I was not anywhere close to this much confidence and it was really great because I think the amount of love and acceptance I got from Victor made it so that I could like kind of grow into myself. I think it also happened from a pretty young, early in our marriage, or once we started having kids, is that I drew into just my own life a lot. So my kids, my husband, myself. I talk about personality type made a difference too. And so in doing that, I put on blinders to the world. And I think for me, that made a huge difference because I wasn't even aware of like what was necessary going on in the world. And quick side note with that. When, Victor and I got married, we were really young. We opened our business, I said, when I was 20. I didn't look up like how to start a business. I just went from instinct. We just like, this feels right. The feeling was, hey, I want to be around my husband all the time. I was teaching gymnastics already. I'm like, hey, I can teach how to teach gymnastics, right? Yeah. Does it mean I get to see you every day? Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then
that's pretty much exactly how it went down.
And then like with homeschooling too, I tell the story in my homeschooling courses, like my son, our oldest, was 3, went to preschool. Everyone sent their kid to preschool. We just thought, oh, you're supposed to. He was horrible at it. He was crying in the corner by like 2 hours after I dropped him off. We taught kids that homeschooled. I'm like, God, I really like I like the values these families have.
They were well-mannered.
Let's just homeschool. So then you're out. Now I'm out of like that system too. So I'm out of the workforce. I'm not seeing anything that's going on in normal workforce. I'm not seeing anything that's going on in normal school systems. I did see the effect because we taught kids. So I would see like, God, this is weird. Right? Like over the course of our 30 years of having our business, or 20 years, I was like, God, kids are less and less happy every single year. This is weird. And they're getting weaker. And they're whining. Like something's going on in the school system that's changing this. And then with RVing, when we moved into an RV, there was no such thing as hashtag RV families. It was just more an desire to like, hey, Victor, like you work all the time and I'm with the kids. Like I want to experience life. Can we just go do this for a while? And it naturally, point being, I could actually say the same thing about crypto right now, but we'll save that for my crypto channel that I'm going to start. I was lucky enough to have blinders on is what the point of that was, that I think that helped start it. Now, I probably also could say my programming was in just my personality type, that I was like a type 8, like I don't take no for an answer. So even if I had been in those scenarios, I probably would have caused a wake behind me there, right?
Yeah.
And then let's go real quick to your, because your upbringing affects your enneagram. Your Myers-Briggs is like how you behave. Well, you have 4 cognitive functions, and on YouTube, we've talked about this a couple times. 4 cognitive functions. Well, I just happen to have an NI and an FI, which means I'm going to be intuitive based on how I feel internally. Victor has an SI and an FE, which means he thinks about his past experiences and other people's emotion. This is so important for people if you're trying to heal your sacral chakra. I think at least it's an important part, because for me to tell Victor, like, well, how do you feel? What's your sense of self? How would you describe the emotions you're feeling? He's like, wait, I can draw from like the past. I was a scared kid. I can draw from what this person I just worked with feels. There's this space that's like of uncertainty, of unfamiliarity. And so like we'll talk about, what do you think that some of the things like journaling, probably meditation, things like that, just space, I think living here, staring out this window makes...
Well, that's a sitting in nature thing, or being in nature so that you have that disconnected. I think one of the most powerful things is that you get away from stimulus.
Yes.
Certain stimulus is certainly bombarded by TV, radio, whatever, podcasts. If you think about it, everyone's always there's no idle time. And so when you sit in silence, people go, well, I'd be bored. a lot of pretty amazing things can happen in that. And then from there, there is an intention with that time eventually. So whether it's a prompt, which, you know, a mantra or something that you're selling yourself, it's like, hey, I got to work on this. Like, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm going to figure this out. I'm smart, I'm intelligent, repeating that over and over, especially once you're aware of the programming.
Yeah.
Or the meditations that take you a certain journey, and then after that meditations, you write it down. I have some people that I take through meditations and I go, okay, how was your journaling gone? Well, I haven't done it. All right, so we're stopping 3 minutes early on this meditation, and you're brain dumping, and that way you can go back to that to prompt them to go deeper and delve deeper into what that potential inner programming, and then to get a little potentially insight into what potential chakras or energy hubs might be giving you some problems. You have to have that ability to step back, look at what you did and go, okay, what did I feel now and what's going on? And try to evaluate that to give you greater insight into what you can do going forward. And so there has to be also a natural tendency that, like, I want more.
Yeah.
If you have that, if you're good, you're good. But I got to tell you, people come in my door, I'm like, hey, how are you? I'm good. And I read between those
So
lines.
I know
real
you're
quick.
listening to this, our favorite client who watches these, but he said this a couple weeks ago. He'd been in San Diego for a long time. I'm good. Well, I'm good, but something seems a little off, but you just don't know. And then he went to a new city and totally mind blown that there's a part of the world that was totally different than what he was perceiving around him. And I can't emphasize that enough. Like, if you say out loud you're good, but you know deep down, subconscious, 95% is happening there, that like, but I would like it if it was better. But I kind of want a little bit more of what they're talking about. You need to put yourself, I would say first, you need to put yourself in a different environment, even if it's just for 3 days, 4 days, a week, a month. Like, you deserve to not feel that.
You need that sometimes you need that distance to gain perspective. Sometimes you need that distance to gain perspective. So he or she inputted themselves, they changed their location. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I was acting in this way.
Or
I
felt
this way. And now I get my lungs, I feel better. All my shoulder discomfort that we've been treating is completely gone because the stress is gone down in a lot of ways. And of course, they were doing something else at this other location and actually physically exerting themselves, but still those aches and pains went away.
And now I'm going to tell you we've talked about recording this video for so long, and I'm going to this is important because the only reason we could finally record this video today is because, remember Victor said the chakra is upstream, downstream, okay? If you have an elbow injury, you're going to be looking at shoulder and wrist, okay? If you have a hip injury, we're going to look up and down. If you have a chakra blockage, you're going to have to look above and below. So above that is Manipura, where's what we do. But if we're doing things that aren't aligning with our sense of self, that's not going to help it, okay? Or below is root chakra. It's our sense of safety, security, and groundedness. Now, Victor's still in the process. We're all in the process of uncovering these, myself included.
It's a flexible model.
Can you tell which of my chakras, my throat chakra is the overactive? Like, I have to work on, like, speak less. The only reason is because he woke up feeling really good today and happy. And last night, right before we started meditating, we were supposed to go on a road trip for the next few days. And because I'm trying to avoid bad weather in Montana. And so we are supposed to leave for a road trip tonight. We just got back from one last Friday. Today is Tuesday. Yeah. Tuesday. It lasted a whole 5 days. But we were supposed to go for a couple days to go climb in 10 sleep. And then we're leaving next Friday for another long trip. And we're like not here in Montana nearly enough. But anyways, he was hurt. He was like, I don't know, my hip's gonna hurt me if we go. I don't want her to go without me because then I'm gonna miss her. But then I said right at the meditation, I'm like, you guys, I'm kind of tired. I want to get some work done. Maybe we'll just skip this trip. Like, we have so much planned. I'm feeling a little tired. Like, maybe it's not the best time to go climb. And I kid you not, 15 minutes after that meditation, I can see, we've been together a long time, I could see in his eyes, I'm like, oh my goodness, your root chakra is happy now because we're not going on this trip. So that's
no,
okay.
I don't admit it.
Okay.
Never.
Don't admit it, but it's okay. Like, in the end, I'm like, there is still a huge link for Victor's root chakra and sacral chakra. When we're in Montana and we're not traveling, he like starts to be, he's all of a sudden the creativity comes out and the more joyfulness and wants to be fun and like.
I'm kind of handsy.
And that's a good sacral chakra. So what triggered this yesterday, well, a lot of things triggered it, but one of the things that, of course, Gabi, Isabelle, and I are like, Dad, you got to heal your sacral chakra. We love you. We want you to have fun with us. And so Isabelle was submitting an article for, so if you don't know, Isabelle's our 17-year-old who's a kids mindfulness coach, and she really takes the lead on our Making Mindfulness Fun on the blog because I'm kind of spread thin with everything else. And so she wrote an article for Yogi Approved on how to help teenagers with sacral chakra blockages, because naturally that's when kind of your sacral chakra develops. And so it's natural for it to get blocked because if your peers are saying like, you know, if there's gossip, if there's judgment, I mean, all the things that naturally.
Well, you can't really relax and be yourself. A lot of times you feel like you need to be morphing toward the norm, right?
For sure.
That's not self-identity. And
so she gave Victor the article to proofread because Victor's an amazing proofreader. He really is.
I caught 2 errors.
And so, but then he's like, you guys made me read this so that I would be aware, right?
These are not the droids you're looking for. The Jedi mind trick.
And so I'm like, oh, can we talk about it on the podcast? Yeah, we can talk about it. My kids do not struggle with this as much, only because, like, inadvertently, maybe somewhat intentionally, I put blinders on them. Now, that's not to say they didn't have moments of struggling. In fact, if you listen to Isabelle and Gabi talk on their own platforms, they talk about how much they had to struggle with fear of rejection. But the difference is that while they were feeling rejection from their peers, for not going to prom, for not knowing the latest gossip, for not knowing who's dating who and what football player did what, and all that other stuff that we kind of avoided. Simultaneously, I was providing an outlet to develop that because it wasn't like I set on this intention, like, all right, let's go develop your sacral chakra. This will be so fun. No, we Manipura, we engaged in life, we did things. So we started hiking. I think about this story all the time when Isabelle, Gabi, and I hiked Maroon Bells 4 passes. You have to get like over 4 3,000-foot mountains. And there was a storm coming in. If you know anything about Colorado, it kind of stinks you don't want to go over a pass when there's a lightning storm. And so we had only hiked a couple miles up right before the first pass the first night, slept there, got up early, started hiking. The idea was to get through 3 passes, but we also knew that there was going to be a storm coming in that night. And I thought, God, you guys, I don't know if I want to get stuck here for an extra day. We didn't bring that much food. Like, if you know anything about me, I'm kind of obsessed with like really good dinners. And so I thought, oh gosh, you guys, I don't want to sit here and like starve for a day. Like, let's just keep pushing. Let's try to push over. And Isabelle was only 14. She's definitely in the last 3 years changed
Tenacity.
a lot. And I'm hiking super fast. It's dark. It's getting dark. We're just barely clearing that last pass. We were like, actually had to run down the last pass. And like the bushes were really high and we're doing bear calls because we're like, oh my gosh, this is like the perfect opportunity to just run around a corner and see a bear. And she's crying because like she's so tired. I mean, that's 4 passes we had just gone over in like 12 hours of hiking. And she's only 14 and she's got this heavy pack and she's just crying. I'm like, we can stop. No, I can do it, but it just hurts so bad. And then, like, for sure, the next day as we wake up, it's lightning, it's pouring. We feel the sense of like, all right, we did this. This was a good call. And she feels a lot of pride in like, wow, I know my mom was pushing hard, but this was good. Well, we've had lots of those. And if you ask her now, she'd be like, yeah, I'm so thankful for it because I realized what I was made of. That I was made of something internal. There's this internal
I can do this
grit that nobody can take away from me. And that's kind of what we need right now. So the only way to get that, and so we have a nickname for Victor, he's Manny the Manipura, is by doing. So we've take home is like, yeah, if you're like, can relate to, yeah, my root chakra is a little bit blocked, my sacral chakra, I feel a little unworthy, I'm a little scared. Well, the step is like, this is why I put it on here, is to get out there and like travel and explore and go. You're not going to know until you get into the world in different scenarios. And guess what? The first place you go might not be great. It might not. It might take you going to 10 different places. The important thing is that you just constantly put on your backpack and walk to another place, or drive to another place, or fly to another place. You just keep going until it resonates with you.
Yeah, right? I agree. I think that through those experiences, ultimately, you'll find there'll be these amazing triggers that you can flip, both good and bad. But remember, the bad's even good too, right? I mean, that failure, that pain that
Victor described. Hated a lot of our travel, and if you ask him right now, he's like, I loved it.
Yeah, I'm so glad I did any of it, but I'm so glad I did it. Had my family, actually, had it not been for something other than for myself, which was give my wife an experience and a family experience, probably would have never done it. But that's based, if you look back at my personality, I always do things for others. And the stories are endless about, about providing that. These guys will pull 180s on me like, hey, dad needs weights. Daniel, go ask him, hey, you need some dumbbells or something. And then they'll get them I'll get them for him.
Those are good stories. You tell someone. Yeah. So Victor loves having new weights in our gym. And so Danny will come to me and say, Mom, Dad wants new kettlebells. Will you go buy them for me? So he has them. And I'm like, yeah, sure. The big thing is like how you'll know is if your sacral chakra is balanced, healed, whatever it is like, first of all, I'm going to tell you, it's a joyfulness, like a absolute like smile on your face. That's how I know with Victor, because as much as I'd say, like, obviously we have 5 kids, like obviously if he had such a blocked sacral chakra, it'd be like, because I was saying infertility. I know a lot of people that are really close to us struggling with this. And part of me still thinks that there is some element of sacral chakra blockages. Some of it is just toxins in the environment, unfortunately. But you're going to have this passion, a zest for life. You find inspiration in a lot of things. And would you agree? Like when you feel more balanced in like, you feel safe, you feel good in who you are, you're like, oh, I got inspiration.
Absolutely. I think one of the simplest, silliest things is that, my personal Instagram, I've been drawn a little bit more into creating funny reels or something like that. And that exposure to be silly and creative is something that really resonated enough with me to be like, wow, well, I can do this. People actually kind of like that. And again, I'm not like super popular on there, but it does something to fulfill me as well as provide some information for someone. That's like a win-win ultimately. And so doing that helps.
Absolutely. And it's funny because you said that and not super popular. It's an interesting thing that like that stigma of like, wow, if I don't have
10,000 followers.
I mean, we don't have much on any of our platforms, but we still show up because there's some form of it that feels enjoyable, that feels
enjoyable and help someone, right? So at my root, I'm like, I just want to help people. And honestly, Robyn's the only one who's got me to do it, because in the end, I would if I had a choice, I would probably drop it all, because I'm like, oh, I don't like that fear of is that this fear of judgment? I have one thing that kind of went viral level, and like the amount of hate that I got was like, God, I just want to punch someone right now. How, like, they don't even know who I am and they're saying these things. And that fear of judgment, but I was like, well, it helped a bunch of people, so I can offset that.
Yeah, right? Because I have one too, the one that we did with we were trying to be funny, and like you do these reels.
It's called comedy, guys.
These reels, you always have to do it to whatever the popular trend is, and at first I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And then we did it a couple times, like, oh, that was kind of fun. And I did the one where it's like argumentative wife, and then Victor's like, yes, honey, whatever. And if that's a little bit of us. It's an exaggeration. I mean, and so many people like, oh, they're going to be divorced. They're doing this. And of course I engage back. I'm like, yep. Yeah. 30 years of marriage.
Yeah, you're right.
If we can't laugh at like what we,
the extremes, right? Yeah. I mean, and ultimately that's where we expose ourselves a little bit, even in these videos, is to show those polar extremes and realize like there is a way to navigate through. Having a better understanding of what's going on in yourself is absolutely the next evolution that humanity has to have.
Well, you know how I told you guys I was a little early to the homeschooling game. I was a little early to the the RV living. I was a little early to the crypto space. I'm telling you, consciousness is right around the corner. Whether you believe it or not, there is going to be a trigger that's going to bring this to the forefront of people's minds. And so, hey, you could be on the cutting edge too. So I'm going to give you a couple take homes. That way you don't just feel like you were just entertained by our
rambles.
The big thing is, I think Victor talked about it, but intentional mindfulness. There's first, like, if you listen to us and like, okay, Robyn, I get it. I feel this a little bit, but like, there's not necessarily something that we can hand you. But what you can do is intentionally say, like, I deserve this. I want to enjoy my life. I deserve to enjoy my life. I want to enjoy my life. I'm going to enjoy my life. Yep. And so the mindfulness comes in like questioning it, observing it. I know when you went to San Diego this last time, I said, just try as much as you can to be a third person outside your body, floating above you, looking like, am I being authentic right now? Am I joyful? Am I happy? Is this me? Is this even like, am I just moving through the motions of my life? Am I like going after what I want? Am I like, you just start becoming the questioner to your own existence. And while like there might be parts of you that like, oh my gosh, what if I get Robyn? What if like every single thing I see myself doing, I hate or I don't want, or I'm upset. I don't even know where to start. But I think we gave you like the first part, like, I know travel seems expensive. Like you can put yourself in new environments. There are lots of different ways. Email me if you can't think of one. I could think of 100 because Victor always goes like, I don't know what to post. And I give him like 100, post this, post that, post it. I have so many ideas. It's ridiculous, but I can think of an idea for you. But that's your first one, is that. The next is to discern. Discern is my favorite word.
Right now.
Nick, after Victor. Discern, like, unfortunately, discerning means a little bit of judgment. And if you're a feeling type, like my wonderful husband, to discern means I judge. And judging is not a good thing. I'm not supposed to judge. And it's not so much that we have to judge, the word judge. It's discern, like, is this serving me? Is this what I want? Is this? So discerning desire, ways to do that. If you join my email list, I tell you, but like, I have videos on it too. If money wasn't an object, what would you do? That's a great question we can ask. Of all of our travels, if money wasn't an object. So if money was an object, I'd go to 10 sleep tonight. And then the next thing I go like, well, do I really will it bring me joy? I have this weird ability I can envision in how I will feel in a scenario, in the future. That's just NI type. So while Victor's great, he can remember exactly what he felt in the past. I have a little bit more trouble with that. I can go like, well, I can totally see how tired I'm going to feel if I drive all the way to South Dakota and back, and then have to turn around 48 hours. I don't think the joy of the climb and the joy of being in Spearfish that I totally miss doesn't align. So you have to discern the feelings too that you want to create. What is that feeling? Do I want to feel rested? Do I want to feel strong? Do I want to feel like connected? Do I want to, all that? That's discerning desire. Isn't just like, how much money do you want to make? Okay. I totally get like that money is important. It gives you options.
Money is energy.
But it's really like when you can break free of like letting that be the thing that decides all of your decisions in the day, then you create the opportunity to approach some of these other things. Programming, that's a hard one, but like Victor said, with journaling, sitting and eliminating all distractions, and then being able to sit in quiet space, whether you need to meditate and close your eyes, whether you need to stare out the window and look at the owls flying by, or a tree. Whatever space, and then think about like, what do I want? What do I feel? Why do I feel this? Was I given a message from my peers? Was I given a message from my family? Mijo, we don't have that much money. Mijo, you can't. Mijo, whatever it is. If my mom gave me, I have a program being like, the worst they're going to say is no. So even though self-doubt totally rules my life too, the worst they can say is no. So whatever that programming is, it's definitely playing a role. I've shared many stories on the podcast how like my dad fails so much. In fact, I just called him last week and like, oh, what is he, 70? I don't know,
Yeah.
70. What do you do? What are you up to? Well, you know that palm tree on my lot, I decided to take a chainsaw to it because I saw SDG&E do it, and so I figured I could do it. But you know, I dropped a frond on my
I don't know what car.
some old car that.
Oh, it's 57 Chevy. Yeah, it's 57 Chevy.
And so that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, even though we all have other issues, is that like, hey, well, I just went and tried and figured it out, and now I got to replace the bumper. The last, do you have one more before I give?
No.
I got the big one, the most deep, the one that will extract you from the matrix the most is perception and reality. Remember that just because your perception is one thing doesn't mean that is the reality. So while, I mean, I don't care where you stand on with the jabs, with the mask, with whatever. It doesn't matter. You get to choose you. I get to choose me. We went to Walmart yesterday and maybe, I don't know, 25% in, like, it's just not
an issue anymore.
Everyone's done with that. They've moved on for whatever reason. But at the same time, a good friend said like, hey, what am I going to do? I'm getting so much social pressure for this. I cannot, I'm really scared. The fact is, like, whatever your perception is in your environment, that might not be reality. And it might be time to put yourself in new situations and expand your reality, because there's a whole world and we travel to a lot of them. Everywhere is different.
Absolutely.
All right, Sacral Chakra. So I hope...
Sfahistana.
Remember, enneagram that plays a role. Myers-Briggs plays a role. The chakras, absolutely, it's not a lot to heal.
That means scratch at the surface, guys.
Oh.
Scratch at the surface. Figure out what's going on inside of you. Look at that mindfulness. Express a little bit of that mindfulness. Take a step towards it. It's a huge process, even for myself. But I know I can help others. So even though I don't have everything figured out, I do the same thing. Like, hey, let's take a step. You can take a step.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, you guys.